Hello everybody, this is Dr. George Pereira and welcome to the course English for Specific Purposes offered by OUN and IHS. English for specific purposes can be branched out into different areas such as English for academic purposes and English for business and occupational purposes and so forth. So today we are going to discuss topic 4, English for business purposes. In such a course, we have to remember who are the users of business English. They are businessmen, those who are involved in business around the world, in different levels, in different capacities. Regardless of their nationalities, ethnicities, use English as their medium of communication. This involves cross-cultural communication. This involves different business contexts. So, even as native speakers, they have to adapt themselves to a simpler, clearer, and more reflective use of standard English in order to be able both to communicate clearly and not stumble into specific cultural language problems. And it is also same with people who are from non-native English-speaking countries. So, defining business English, one theorist, Pickett, tackles the term in two ways: public communication aspect of business English and communication within a company or between them, intra and inter, within and outside. So business English can be divided into English for general business purposes, EGBP, and English for specific business purposes. English for general business purposes, it is generally for pre-experienced learners, and its respective courses are usually offered like general English as a foreign language courses. So only with materials based on a business context. So, English for EGBP, for example, Macmillan Business English Program, and among other notable forerunning textbooks, it offers grammar-based material with a focus on presentation, through listening and or reading followed by exercise to practice grammar and vocabulary that is used for business, typically to carry out the business, and the skills are tested and improved via typical business carried content. So the general English is presented through business settings. Then English for specific business purposes. English for specific business purposes courses directed towards more experienced businessmen. Focus is on business knowledge and skills. So the learners use English in terms of their own specific business context. So, unlike the EGBP, English for specific business purposes focus on presentation and practice in accuracy. That is, of course, very useful for specific business purposes. The role of needs analysis in business English is another theme that we need to discuss. Pilbeam, the theorist, suggests The needs analysis should be directed towards target situation analysis as well as present situation analysis. Two technical terms. Target situation analysis. What is the target of that needs analysis? What kind of things they need to know? Then also the present situation analysis. What is their level now? And what are their present current needs? So the courses are organized in such a way that suits the needs of the target learners. Holden suggests that language needs are firstly identified in needs analysis. The learner's perception of corporate knowledge then has also to be established. So, target language needs, what they need to learn or to learn, and their corporate or business knowledge at the moment. Then the preferred learning style should also be examined through a questionnaire for the needs analysis. What is the target? What is the existing knowledge? And their preferred learning style. Three things. For short intensive courses, English for business purposes teacher could have the chance to obtain pre-course information in order to design the framework for the course. This can also be achieved through one-on-one situations, through an interview that can be conducted in order for the teacher to obtain thorough and relevant prerequisite data. So you can talk to the students, interview them, or give a question and so forth to do the needs analysis. There is another topic called needs analysis, which has in-depth information regarding this area. So extensive English for general business purposes courses, less effort is needed for the establishment of learners' needs. And however, a computer integrated system containing a range of questionnaires could provide the teacher with instant needs analysis at the onset of an English for general business purposes course. So teachers of business English, they must be experienced, they have to be sociable, genuinely interested in business matters. Of course, these teachers may not be professionally into business, therefore they are required to gain knowledge of the context of business by extensive reading, interaction, and observing real-life business encounters. For example, English for hospitality trade. For example, let us say hotel managers, then the receptionists can vary, but the business context is the hospitality, the hotel trade. Then you have the assignment English for news editors. Then there is a particular context in which you have to do the needs analysis in order to find out the needs in news editing, so that you will be able to design the course based on the learning style of the learners and the existing situation, the level of the students, and the target, or the standard, or the measurement through which we can lead the students. So the following pointers are necessary for an EBP teacher. Communicative functions of English in business contexts, either hotel or anything else. So also for news editing context. So communicative functions of English. English for communication, written and oral communication. Then the businessmen's expectations and learning strategies. They are very busy people. So how you are going to address the expectations and learning strategies. Then the psychology of personal and interpersonal interactions with regard to culture. For example, the way people greet and what words they are supposed to say if there is a cross-cultural communication. Then also the management theories, especially for business management, and finally first class training skills. Training skills with wide variety of teaching and learning methods, especially learner centered. So let us move to key issues for business English. There are some categories. Discourse communities, that means language is used, let us say the Americans, and then who are non-native English English learners, or people who communicate in English, but their English is their second language. Then the business genre, that is business language. Then the key communicative events, maybe a presentation, maybe a business meeting, and so forth. Then finally the functions, grammar, and the lexis, the vocabulary. The following this review of literature, it is said in this book that business managers who attend English for specific purposes courses expect to be enrolled in 6 to 8 people classes or even be tutored individually. It could be large or small classes. So here the reference is for small classes or individual classes. So it's important that learners are taught through context-based involvement in their particular context. Time is an integral issue for them. So classes are expected to be well-paced. So the classes can be conducted via telephone, and also the online materials can be used, such as the internet, audiobooks, CD-ROM, for example, as material quality of the course requires major consideration. Another stressed issue is the role of cross-cultural communication. Cultural diversity in business has to be taken into consideration. For example, based on the cultural differences, the eye contact, size of private body space, social distancing in a way I would call it, transparency of feelings in tone or body, it depends on culture to culture, and behavioral treatment towards boss or executive. So this particular issue could also be tackled on the basis of whether you are a universalist, believing in the execution of one good way, or particularist, encouraging flexibility. So, cultural differences is integral to successful business communication in terms of the purpose of meetings, the use of direct, indirect negotiation tactics, information structures, as well as matters concerning politeness. So, for example, in certain cultures, boss will never be questioned. They will not directly speak to the boss. But in certain cultures, it's very democratic. They express their opinions and ideas directly. So these things should be taken into consideration, and of course, with the targets in mind, the standards in mind, expectations in mind, we have to design the course. So we need to know that in order to see the present context and the target and the individual learning style of the learner. So the culture in which business is about to occur is vital, cultural understanding. For example, in indirect speeches such as would you mind my asking if kind of language. Another cultural issue is the body language. Take the use of silence in interactions, for example, which might widely differ between Western and Eastern cultures. So, how the chosen strategy could prove to be effective within the web of language has to be determined. Then, the business context should be taken into consideration. So, a host of materials is introduced, which include various books, magazines, and journals, popular Masters of Business Administration handbooks, not masters, MBA, it could also be Management of Business Administration handbooks, and interactive media that could enlighten the business English teacher. Management training theory and practice goes well with the principles of English for specific purposes. So the subject knowledge, that is the business management theory, for example, is essential somewhat for the teacher. Then another idea is the team teaching, which could be very beneficial for a business English teacher. English for business purposes versus English for academic purposes. There is a difference. There are differences. English for academic purposes operates within an atmosphere where the goal is the acquisition of knowledge on an individual basis. English for business purposes operates in a world where individuals are part of a bigger transacting whole that aims to profit by exchanging goods and services. For academic purposes, to write the thesis papers and to read for information, textbooks, online materials, and so forth. But here is more a real world context, transactions, interactions that is expected in the business context. So in academic English, knowledge for its own sake. In business English, knowledge for a profit margin. Another major difference between EBP and EAP is that in an academic atmosphere, language that is produced is monitored by a native speaker. So, for example, read in English books, native textbooks, write up for a native speaking supervisor in the university. But in a business context, it is devoid of such power negotiation as most of the interactions occur among non-native speakers. So it was the cross-cultural issues that were born out of this particular context that should be taken into consideration. So, for example, if a British person speaks to us, we may find it difficult to understand the accent, and the British person may find it difficult to understand our own accent. So, how we are going to learn business English in different aspects such as speaking and listening. So, for the business world, English is the lingua franca, international universal language. And on the other hand, business values and cultural awareness should also be built into the courses. So, these are some study questions for you. How are cultural sensitivity and understanding of our own and others' values and behavior important in English for specific purposes, especially English for business purposes. Give 3 examples of what can happen if certain values and behavior in another culture are mishandled. Then what are the core communicative events in business English? Observe and analyze one of the events that would help in EBP teaching. For example, telephone conversation, conference, and so forth. So these are 2 answers. These are answers for the 2 questions. You can read this thoroughly. And these are the examples. Westerners often greet each other with a handshake. In some Eastern cultures, any form of bodily contact between casual acquaintances is not condoned. So we have to avoid embarrassment. Speaking up in meetings, especially against the boss, could be seen as a form of disrespect in some societies. In other societies, speaking up in meetings against the boss could be a democratic opinion. Then in low uncertainty avoidance cultures, people are less rigid and therefore more relaxed. But in high uncertainty avoidance culture, this would be rude and not taken politely. Then, second question, core communicative events could include telephoning, socializing, for example, the foreigners who visit Sri Lanka on business purposes, making presentations in an international conference, taking part in meetings and negotiations, corresponding and reporting. So, for a telephone call, acknowledging a call, introducing oneself. Hi, good morning. Thank you for calling. And I am so and so, that kind of language. Offering assistance and information. After that, inquiring for details politely. Then ending of the conversation. They are polite manners of business communication. So, let us read further in this book and reflect and see how we can apply these situations to our assignment as well. English for specific purposes. News editors. What are their needs analysis? How would you design a course? Okay, thank you for listening and let us move to the next topic.